What is it about that has stuck with you the most?
Oh, the image of her body. I cannot get that image out of my head. I keep seeing the river at dusk in that twilight gloom. I hear crickets chirping. I hear, the natural river sounds, and they would not be loud. And I see these guys fishing, and I keep seeing through their eyes as I look towards this thing floating on the water, this large, mummy-shaped package wrapped in black plastic and bound all around with duct tape, with chains and rope connecting the package to 2 concrete cinder blocks. And then they realize that the package is open at one end, the top end, and there is this long, blonde hair flowing out across the surface of the water like a hank of corn silk. I mean, it's so obvious that whoever threw her in there had no idea she'd ever rise again. No idea. They assumed that she was going to be underneath the Trinity River for eternity.
In 1993, Shelley Watkins was a young mom living in Corsicana, Texas, a town less than an hour's drive south of Dallas.
Shelley was a very beautiful and vibrant and smart young woman. She was very forthright. She always spoke her mind.
This is Corsicana native Carol Dawson.
She didn't put up with any bullshit, and I think she was a handful. She was, as we call a woman like that in Texas, a pistol.
But Shelley wasn't quite like the other folks in Corsicana. She'd grown up in the Midwest in a completely different culture and had somehow found her way down to Texas, where she was living the small-town dream.
The other women in town were, I think, some of them, a bit taken aback by the fact that this complete outsider had come to town and caught the attention of a guy who was the head of a very up-and-coming business that had already started making tons of money. She caught him, and they didn't.
Shelley married very well. She didn't really want for anything.
This is Shelley's sister, Sandy.
She had a beautiful home, beautiful children, beautiful everything. Jerry back then was a very, very good-looking guy, probably one of the nicest guys, just good Southern guy. They were like very, very much in love. It was kind of fairy tale-like. When Jerry was trying to tell me, they had a fight and Shelley walked out and left her girls. He said, yeah, she was upset. She just walked out. I said, Jerry, I don't think she would do that. He goes, well, she did.
She disappeared on Labor Day night. 1 week and 1 day later, 3 fishermen were fishing in the Trinity River, way out in the country.
She was wrapped in plastic wrapping, and she had a chain around her neck with cinder blocks, and she had chains around her legs with cinder blocks.
One of the fishermen calls 911, and then all hell breaks loose from there.
The gruesome way someone tried to make Shelley disappear, expecting her body to sink like a stone to the bottom of the Trinity, stunned her friends and pretty much everybody else in town.
I mean, it was awful. It made my stomach hurt. That kind of thing doesn't happen in Corsicana, you know?
That was Corsicana native Teresa Weidman Darby. This is Janet Bailey Gummelt.
I was just so shocked, and somebody had done something really bad to my friend. Somebody had murdered Shelley.
Who killed Shelley Watkins? Who threw her in the river? More than 3 decades later, this unsolved murder still troubles the town, where Shelley had tried to make her home until, suddenly, everything was taken from her. One person who's never stopped thinking about Shelley Watkins is author and historian Carol Dawson.
When I was growing up in Corsicana, I was in the same class as one of Shelley's in-laws. Her husband, Jerry Mack Watkins, was in my brother John's class. I didn't really know these people very well, and I certainly did not know Shelley Watkins or get to know who she was until after she was dead. When I moved back to Texas in 1997 from New Zealand, I heard the story of Shelley's death, and then I realized that I have a family member who was personally involved it had a profound effect on me, as you might imagine. And there was a certain time, about a year and a half ago, I suddenly went, oh boy, it's really time to tell the story of my hometown. And it is time to really tell the story of this woman's murder. As objectively as possible, without pointing any fingers or anything like that, but tell the story of what happened to her when she entered Corsicana as an outsider. And so I started reading stories and clippings, started talking to a lot of people, started writing this book. It just poured out, and I realized how long I had been holding this whole thing in the back of my mind. I was deeply invested in talking about violently murdered women, especially women who had been murdered by their partners. And for some reason, it did not dawn on me until I was writing this book. Oh yeah, I have to do this because I came very close to that fate myself. Somebody nearly killed me. And it was only a split second that lay between me and my own death that saved me. So all of a sudden it became really crucial to get to the heart of this story because Shelley didn't have that chance, that split second. I showed the book to someone who said, you know, this would make a great podcast. I've never made a podcast before. Then some close mutual friends said, you need to talk to Wes Ferguson.
That's me. I get this email out of the blue from Carol. She tells me about a book she's written called The Labor Day Ghost. We agree to meet for lunch. I've been a journalist in Texas for more than half my life. Sometimes it feels like I've heard it all before. Then Carol starts telling me the story of Shelley Watkins. 3 months after Shelley's body was found in the Trinity River, her husband, Jerry Mack Watkins, was indicted for her murder. He has always maintained his innocence. To a lot of people, the evidence against him was damning. You'll hear all about that later and can decide for yourself. Jerry Mack's lawyers were getting ready for his day in court. Then, out of nowhere, the indictment was dropped. When Carol told me why the judge dismissed Jerry Mack's case, I was shocked. It had nothing to do with Jerry Mack's innocence or guilt, and everything to do with an act of political corruption so brazen, even the FBI stepped in. Afterward, as far as anyone could tell, the case just went away. What was the deal? Was it a cover-up? Why was the death of Shelley Watkins, a woman from one of the town's most prominent families, seemingly swept under the rug? After Jerry Mack went free, he quickly married a woman who lived down the street, one of his dead wife's closest friends, and they seem to have lived happily ever after. Business has boomed, giving Jerry Mack even more power in Corsicana. Locals who say they know things and wish they could talk refuse to go on the record. They have too much at stake. Silence is often the unwritten code in small towns.
But people are still, to this day, being deeply affected by this one particular death. Deeply affected. Their lives have been shaped by it. I mean, the ripple effect just does not end. She does not go away. She haunts Corsicana itself. She haunts all of the people involved. They regard it as a cold case, but in fact, it's still hot.
30 years after someone tried to dispose of Shelley Watkins in the Trinity River, we're back at the same bridge, Farm to Market Road 85. It's just a few miles from the tiny community where Shelley Watkins' husband and his siblings grew up.
Here we are. Trinity River. Can you get out?
Yeah,
okay,
I got
on
room.
that side?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to turn on my flashers.
Carol parks on the shoulder and we get out to have a look around. The river is low. The water's brown and the banks are bare and sandy. All through here are swampy floodplains, creeks, and oxbow lakes. A world hidden behind a wall of thicket.
The sense of isolation here might have been enough to afford somebody a strong sense of security in what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And they would have to know about this bridge, and they would have to know that the water was deep enough here. This is a hell of a place for a woman to wind up. It is so unfair, not just to her, but to her children, to her family, and that really makes me mad. It really does.
This is a story of power, wealth, violence, and corruption. Carol and I don't know where our reporting will take us. We're going to do everything we can to find out who Shelley was as a mom, a sister, a friend, and why the quest to deliver justice for Shelley's death has gone so horribly wrong for so long.
Oh, it was just a stranger that abducted her and did this.
This is Shelley's brother-in-law, Gary.
No,
Yeah.
because a stranger does not do all of this. All the plastic, all the chains, all the cinder blocks. Somebody that knows her and wants to get rid of the body does what they did.
They do intimidate me for sure. Don't ruffle too many feathers. You need to be careful there. But also, 30 years later, I'm getting freaking tired now of, oh no, we're still hoping and praying that we get some sort of closure. Don't we want to find out who killed Shelley?
My name is Carol Dawson.
And I'm Wes Ferguson. You're listening to The Unforgotten. Season 1, The Labor Day Ghost. Chapter 1, The River. Say come in? Did you hear someone say come in?
I heard somebody make a sound, but not come in.
Oh. Carol and I are standing on the front steps of a house we've never been to. I'm not entirely sure, but there's a good chance a guy named Larry Warwick might live here. We've been trying to get in touch with Larry for weeks. Sent texts, left voicemails, wrote him an old-fashioned letter, and dropped it in the mail. Nothing's worked so far. When you run out of other options, you just have to find an address, show up on the doorstep, and hope for the best.
Hey, bud. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Are you Larry?
I am.
Larry, my name is Carol Dawson.
Hi, Carol.
I'm originally from Corsicana.
Okay.
I'm Wes Ferguson.
Okay, what can I do for y'all?
Standing in the doorway is a tall man in his late 60s. He introduces himself as Larry Warwick. This is the guy we've been trying so hard to reach. Before we came here, we looked up Larry online. We knew he'd retired about a year ago as the assistant police chief in Gun Barrel City. That's a small town on a lake called Cedar Creek Reservoir in Henderson County, Texas. Back in the early 90s, Larry was an investigator for the Henderson County Sheriff's Office. He and a Texas Ranger named Ray Nutt led the investigation into the death of Shelley Watkins. Carol and I want to ask Larry what he remembers about the case.
Well, I don't know what I can tell you. I have dementia now, and that's why I retired, and my memory is horrible. I would love to help you. I know who did it. Y'all come on in.
Thank you, Larry.
Use my house.
We follow Larry inside. He has an old recliner where he sits down. We ask him about Shelley.
I was just thinking about her the other day.
Were you?
Yeah, I really was. That's another one of my murders that I've worked so many that I've led to a successful closure, and that's one of them that just haunts me. My wife actually took the 911 call.
I'm pretty sure Carol's ears perk up right about now. I know mine do. I was sorry to hear that Larry has dementia and he doesn't remember details about the case anymore. I've had family members with dementia, and I know how hard it can be. But Larry has just told us something Carol and I had no idea about. Larry's wife, Christy, was the 911 operator who took the call when Shelley's body was first discovered.
Now, Christy may remember more about the actual call. Hey, Siri, call Christy on speaker.
Calling Christy, my one true love.
Oh.
Mobile on speaker.
Well, she is.
Wonder if my husband would ever say something like that.
Hey.
Are you busy?
I'm still at work. Yeah, what you need?
Well, I actually have some people here that's investigating Shelley's Watkins murder. And they wanted to holler at you for a minute. Are you coming on for lunch?
Who are they?
Well, I'll let them introduce themselves.
I can tell from Christy's tone that, yeah, she's too busy right now. She's also like, who are these strangers in my living room? But I also get a sense that Christy will want to talk when she has time.
I know he'd love to help Del figure this out. I mean, it was kind of figured out, but it just wasn't handled correctly by Evie. Like you said, it's haunted Larry. We've spent many sleepless nights. So, so he'll definitely want to be included and to help y'all as much as he can.
She sounds lovely.
Oh, she's a peach. Her memory's really good, and I know she'll remember everything about the 911 call.
We say our goodbyes. Carol and I get back in the car to debrief. Meeting Larry and Christy is a huge break.
That went so much better than I feared it would. He does remember some things. And I don't think his dementia disqualifies the more important things he had to say.
2 weeks later, we're back in Larry and Christy's living room.
So you were a dispatcher.
I started out as a jailer, and then I switched over to dispatching. I still say to this day, I think all my years of dispatching made me very nosy. I don't mind asking a question. I don't mind stating a fact or, not rudely, but just, I need to know. Why do you need to know? Because it helps me help you. It's not just talking over radio, taking calls. It's getting people the help they need so they're safe.
Do you remember when you ended up getting that call?
I do remember the call. I will never forget the call. It was in the evening time. It was, darker, I think. The one gentleman said they were fishing on the Trinity River and they had found a body. They just said that the body was in a bag, and they said they were going to tie it up, which blows my mind when I'm hearing this. They're going to tie it up to a tree limb, stump, or something out there that's in the water so it wouldn't go further down. Well, what do you say to that? They were very, I don't want to say nonchalant. I guess people shouldn't be surprised what they find in the Trinity River, maybe, because that happens a lot in the Trinity River, or more than it should.
Floating down from Dallas.
Sometimes you think, yeah, but it just, I kept thinking, is this a joke? Is this, I didn't even know what to say or how to respond to it. It took me a minute, and I'm snapping at my coworker because I need her to get on her console so she can help a girl out here.
Christy and the other dispatcher on duty, a woman named Jamie, start working through their emergency protocols.
Well, you hear about adrenaline that kicks in on certain calls, and it happens even though we're sitting behind a desk. There's things that need to happen, and it's a lot of things at one time.
She puts the call out. She radios a lot of people: deputies, Larry the investigator, state troopers, firefighters, an ambulance, the captain, and the sheriff. Someone calls in the Texas Rangers, too.
Because this is a major call where everybody needs to be on the scene with it, Not saying other calls are less important, but it's just kind of an all hands on deck kind of thing.
To fish the body out of the river, Christy also has to find somebody with a boat.
Yeah, I've been a game warden since 1967.
This is Rick Thomas. He's retired now.
I was at home that night and got a call that the fishermen had found a body in the Trinity River. I want to say it was about 9 or 10 o'clock. I was watching TV.
Over the years, Rick says he was called out pretty often to help recover human bodies in rivers and lakes. Most were drowning victims, accidental deaths. This was different.
And so I got my little boat and went up there. That part of the river, you never see that many people on it.
When Rick got to the Trinity River, he pulled off the highway.
You just have to back down there and load and drop the boat in the water.
Rick steered investigator Larry Warwick and Texas Ranger Ray Nutt down the river.
It was cool that night. That was what I remember. We're just idling along. When we got to the area, we could see the body kind of floating.
How far downstream from that bridge was she?
Probably, I'm going to say, quarter to a half a mile, maybe.
Had she been hung up on some debris, or was she just on the bank, or what?
No, she was in the middle of the river, and evidently there was some debris underwater that stopped her from floating down. And you know, you got to remember, she had two large concrete blocks that had rope, so that was hanging. So that's hung up on the bottom because the river probably wasn't 12 feet deep. And the only reason these fishermen found her is that they saw that plastic. She was face down in the water, and her hair was just floating on the surface. And she was covered with this plastic. It had kind of come undone, but she was covered with it. You have to understand, I'm in the back of the boat driving it. It's a motor, and they're up in the front. And they're the ones that picked her up and put her in the boat. So I just saw what I saw till I got the boat turned around. We got there and removed the plastic and got the body and put it in the boat. And at the time, I didn't know anything about the case at all.
At the bridge, Rick can recall talking to a sheriff's investigator named Jimmy Johnson.
And when we got the body back up to the bridge, Jimmy Johnson leaned over and told me, he said, "That's going to be Shelley, the girl that's missing." And I just happened to see her feet, and I saw her toenails were painted. I want to say kind of a pale red, what I remember. So that kind of made for sure it was her.
The clothing also matched the description of Shelley Watkins' attire when she was last seen: a dark blue sleeveless hoodie and matching athletic shorts. The cotton briefs were Calvin Klein. The investigators were confident they'd found Shelley in the river, but they had to make sure. The body was in an advanced state of decomposition. There was a justice of the peace who also responded to the scene. He ordered an autopsy.
We were in a first call vehicle, which was a Suburban.
This is J.D. Jennings. He's a funeral director. At the time, he was an apprentice for a local funeral home.
We drive to the scene. We get her caught out, and we handed the body bag off to the game wardens. And then they brought her up and placed her in the back of the car, and I drove to Dallas.
Once you get to Dallas, what happens?
Transferred her off the cot onto a table, and that was basically it.
By sending off the body to the medical examiner's office in Dallas, dental records could be used to confirm whether or not this really was Shelley Watkins, the mother of two who'd been missing for a little more than a week. Meanwhile, Shelley's sister, her mom, her grandma, the people who loved her most, they lived out of state, and they were desperately waiting for updates. They would continue to wait. Shelley's husband, Jerry Mack Watkins, had gone silent. Hey, Sandy, thank you so much for calling me. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little nervous, but, it's not like I haven't been through this plenty of times.
This is Sandy Salter Cripps, Shelley's older sister.
And I'm just like, gosh, it's been so many years, and I just won't give up hope. I just can't give up hope.
In 1993, Sandy lived and worked in Atlanta, Georgia, as a corporate travel agent for UPS and IBM. Sandy and her husband Gary were raising two daughters in the same age range as Shelley's own two little girls. Visits between the two families swapped back and forth. Shelley came to Atlanta to see her sister and her own mother, Dusty, who was also living there. And Sandy and her family traveled to Corsicana for several vacations. The two young mothers were very close.
How did you find out that Shelley was missing?
Well, I didn't find out right away. She technically died that Monday, Labor Day. And I think Wednesday is when Jerry called me.
Jerry, of course, is Shelley's husband, Jerry Mack Watkins. It took him nearly 2 days to inform Sandy that her sister was missing.
I mean, he should have called me the next morning and said, "My God, your sister's not here." But he didn't. He waited until Wednesday afternoon. He's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, your sister and I had a fight and, she's not here. I said, where are the girls? Well, they're here. I said, you're saying that she just left? He said, yeah, she was upset. She just walked out. I said, Jerry, I don't think she would do that. He goes, well, she did.
Jerry Mac Watkins hasn't responded to our requests for an interview. His criminal attorney also declined a request to talk. Jerry has always maintained his innocence. He says that he and Shelley were arguing at their house when she simply walked away into the night, never to be seen again.
Let me tell you, Wes, that would have never in a million years happened, ever. So that right off the bat, when Jerry was trying to tell me that, I was like, something's not right here. Something's not right. She might have taken her girls with her, but she would have never left, as Jerry said, and walked down the street. Not going to happen.
Janet Bailey Gummelt, whom you heard earlier in this story, agrees with Sandy.
Another thing I'd like conveyed is how much she loved those girls. She was a good mother, and she doted on those girls. She wanted them to have the best experiences. She would have never left those girls. I do know that. She would have never willingly left those girls.
Not only were Sandy and Shelley close, but they kept in regular touch and liked to feel reassured about what was happening in one another's life.
I lived in Georgia, but we saw each other frequently. There were some things that I probably missed that were going on. Because initially, I was trying to believe in Jerry because I'd only seen, I'd been to Texas many times and he was always the greatest host and, everything was great. My parents adored him and, all was good.
But Sandy says his story and his actions just didn't add up.
And then he said, I just wanted to let you know, I'm going to go to my sister's. He said, I'm going to go over there with the girls. I said, Jerry, she walked out on Monday and you're going to leave the house with the children on Wednesday night? Who does that? So that was another red flag. I said, I just think it's a big mistake. You shouldn't leave the house. You should be waiting there for her to come back. But he knew she wasn't coming back. Of course he did. Hence him not wanting to be at the house.
Sandy tried calling for updates about her sister.
And then Jerry gapped out on me again. And I didn't hear anything. And I was like, what in the world? And I would leave messages, not a word, not a word. Her body had been found on that Monday by the fishermen. Well, nobody contacted me at all. Again, it's a Wednesday. And I'm calling.
Sandy's on the phone calling Watkins Construction, the family business.
I'm calling anybody I can get because there's a gap of time now. And what is the problem? So finally, I called, I was about darn hysterical. And I called like the receptionist or whatever. And I think I said, you tell Jerry to call me now. And Carmack called me.
Finally, the phone rings. It's not her brother-in-law, Jerry. It's Jerry's dad, Carmack.
That was so jarring. I was at home and my 6-year-old had just walked in from school when he told me she'll never, ever, ever forget it.
It seared into my brain.
This is Dr. Courtney Cripps, Shelley's niece.
Could you talk about that a little bit, please? It was the most guttural and visceral reaction that one could have. It came from just the deepest of places. Like the phone rings, she gets the call. Guttural is the only way to put it. As a 6-year-old, I actually remember kind of laughing in the moment, which was obviously not met with any good response from my mom. It was only met with more like fury or complete devastation and, a slight momentary anger towards me to kind of like, what is wrong with you? But I could not comprehend what this all meant, I guess. Even though I was hearing all the words, it just made absolutely no sense. And then I remember leaving for a bit, actually getting on my bike, thinking I'm going to ride my bike to Texas and like go handle this over everyone, because it was literally as if the roof had crumbled, you know, like life changed in that moment. Yeah, that moment will never, ever leave my brain.
And what were the exact words her mother heard as soon as she answered the phone that were blurted straight out by Shelley's father-in-law, Carmack Watkins?
And it was it's really hard to say, but goddamn, they found the body. Verbatim. Goddamn, they found the body.
Next time on The Unforgotten.
Jerry was a very, very good-looking guy. They were like very, very much in love. It was kind of fairy tale-like. And Shelley said, I gotta tell you though, there are different things that I've heard that if I ever disclose, the Watkins could be in a lot of trouble. And I looked at her, I said, the Watkins have a lot of power. Don't ever say that to anybody. Forget it, be done.
Thank you for listening to The Unforgotten. Get updates, photos, case files, and more when you sign up for our newsletter at unforgottenpod.com. The Unforgotten is a free-range production. Season 1, The Labor Day Ghost, is created, written, and hosted by Carol Dawson and me, Wes Ferguson. I'm the executive producer here at Free Range. Audio recording, editing, and mixing by Austin Sisler at Eastside Studios in Austin, Texas. Scored by Austin Sisler and Jamie Cummins. Our theme song, Ghost, is written and performed by Corsicana's own Will Mechatron Jones. If you support our efforts to shine a new light on Shelley Watkins' cold case, please like, subscribe, give us a review, and tell your friends. Thanks again, and see you soon.